So, since the pandemic, I have done a lot of remote work. And as a therapist, there are a lot of benefits that I enjoy with remote work. I love not having to waste a couple hours out of every day on a commute where I'm just burning up gasoline to go work somewhere else. And then, I have to come back to home and burn up a whole bunch more gasoline and wait in traffic for a very long time and get frustrated, and nobody likes that in their life. I have total control of my workspace when I work remotely. Nobody eats the clearly labeled food out of the refrigerator, that had my name on it, but they thought, oh, I can just eat his food. None of that happens when I work from home as a therapist. But one of the best benefits of remote work as a therapist is that my clients don't have to commute to see me because they can just reach me from wherever they're at in their home state where I'm licensed. And there's lots of benefits that people see from remote working, and many people currently sweeping the country as we head towards a recession. We're seeing a lot more return to office mandates in many different companies, many different sectors, and they have a lot of reasons why they want to do that. They ignore the available research that says that remote work is actually more productive, and they say, actually, we think that having meetings face-to-face is more productive or better for you or whatever. They'll say that shit. And then there's reasons that they won't say out loud, like they need to justify the fact that they have leased or own very expensive office space that they need to make use of. Or, in many very sinister cases, it's actually a method by which they are reducing their workforce so that they don't have to look like they have laid off a whole bunch of people. So they get people hooked on this working from home thing, and people make certain changes to their lifestyle and whatnot, and then when they require people to go back to work and return to office, they start it in phases. They'll be like, okay, just 3 days out of the week you got to come back, and then they'll say, okay, now we're going up to 4, now to 5, and then there are people who had their lives just changed after the pandemic, to the point where they've taken on things that they cannot change, like they move to a different location that's too far away from work, or they have childcare needs that they've taken on, and prices have gone up, but pay has not, and so they need to be home for whatever childcare reasons, and so they cannot be going to work because they actually have to be around in case something happens with their kid. They can't just leave their kid at home alone, and they can't afford childcare, so it's impossible for them to return to office. And the employers know this, and they're trying to just reduce their workforce before the great laying off of everyone, because they just want that layoff number to be a little bit lower so that the stock prices won't be as impacted by it. Because, stock price is the most important thing in the world. And I feel like all these things are widely understood, and the only reason I'm making this video is to add one more evil thing about return to office mandates that I want everyone to start talking about. What I want you to start talking about is how return to office mandates are actually related to gerrymandering practices and voting. Just laying the groundwork here, generally speaking, highly populated urban areas tend to vote Democrat, and rural areas and farmland tends to vote Republican, and those rural farmland areas have been inundated for decades with right-wing propaganda on AM radio stations, which were the only sort of media that a lot of people out there could be reached by. And so you see this very big polar shift between people in the cities and people on the farms, right? There are political parties that benefit from this staying the way it is, the status quo. What happened after the pandemic is that when a lot of people got remote jobs, they realized that they could cut their living expenses by moving from the city to rural areas, places where industry had left and the city had much cheaper housing, or just places that had never been big towns before. They loved the quaint main streets of them, and they loved how they could get out and smell fresh air instead of traffic. So yeah, a lot of people moved from the big city to rural areas. This very much upsets the apple cart as far as how district lines have been drawn, and they need things to go back to the way they were before the next census happens, which is decennial. It happens every 10 years. And return to office policies force remote workers back into the cities, potentially shifting their voter registration from suburban or rural areas back to the urban districts, which alters voting demographics. Return to office mandates consolidates the progressive voters in urban districts while leaving rural areas more conservative, reinforcing gerrymandering efforts. Some companies who are aligned with conservative policymakers push return to office mandates to break up politically active remote workers who were organizing in their home districts when they moved to rural areas. Then those workers who are returning to the high-cost cities because they have those return to office mandates, they may struggle financially, which limits their time and ability to participate in local political activism, voter registration drives, and elections. Another reason why they like people to return to the cities when they return to the office is because remote workers who can live anywhere tend to participate in national labor movements and political movements and not just their own local movements because they see themselves as more national citizens. The economic coercion and voter influence that results from all of this return to office and return to the cities mandates, it actually really affects marginalized communities a lot more because many remote workers from marginalized backgrounds really needed to move from the more expensive communities, and when they have to move away from the affordable communities that they went to and go back to the expensive cities, this reduces their political engagement due to economic strain. Remote working also threatens the increase in political power that sparsely populated places had through the electoral college and the fact that their vote counted for more. And so return to office mandates actually preventatively keep people from moving to a different district where their vote might count for more, and possibly diluting the concentration of conservative political power in places like Wyoming or Nebraska. So, what I want you all to consider the next time you see a company that is requiring people to return to office for work that could easily be done remotely, I want you to consider whether or not that company is leading people along by the purse strings, attaching their livelihood to this mandate in order to oppress them politically and make sure that their vote is concentrated in the cities because it benefits the political interest of the people who own the company.